You're learning how to really like level and treat your spouse as a partner, as an equal. That's the magic, I think, of what that works.
That's whole, the whole point of everything I teach is to, over time, right, develop a genuine, equally reciprocal, romantic partnership.
You're listening to Get Your Marriage On, the fun and spicy podcast bringing you new tools and fresh ideas so that you can be the sexiest couple you know.
Communication in marriage is a big deal, and many couples tell me they wish their communication was better. Many men approach intimacy in marriage differently than women do, and each person in the marriage has their own fears and insecurities as well. And in fact, I think it's the way we deal with our insecurities or how we manage them that often triggers the fears or insecurities or vulnerabilities in the other person. And what this does is it sets off this reactive cycle. We try to cover our insecurities. We say something that triggers our spouse, and what they say triggers our vulnerability, and around it goes. And often what's said isn't the same as the message that was received, which opens up the doors to more hurt feelings and misunderstandings. I met today's guest through one of my team members that has participated in her excellent mentorship program. Her name is Ramona Zabriskie, and she has spent the last decade of her life dedicated to helping women succeed in their marriages. She's a mentor to hundreds of wives, and she's full of all this folksy wisdom, like what you'll get to hear today, like 5 lies we tell brides and teaching knights to knit. In today's episode, you'll get to meet Ramona's 5 crazy ladies, and I'm wondering, which one do you relate to the most? And why husbands and wives don't listen to each other. And more importantly, you'll hear what Ramona believes are the steps to building not only just a good or great marriage, but a grand marriage as well. Before we begin, I've got good news or bad news, depending on how you take it. We sold out of all of our spots last week for our upcoming marriage retreat. However, sometimes there's still a last-minute cancellation or an opening, or perhaps you want to be the first to know about when our next retreat is coming up. You can go to the Couples Retreat page on my website and add your name to the waiting list. And mark your calendars for February 1st as we kick off our 14 Days of Sextimacy Challenge. Woo! The first thing you need to do is download the Intimately Us app, and you and your spouse will work together as an intimate team to complete challenges over the 14 days, February 1st through the 14th. And we have thousands of dollars in prizes that we're giving away, with the grand prize being airfare for 2, and you can win one of these amazing prizes that we have. Besides, take advantage of this special time in February to draw closer to your spouse. And you can follow the prompts, games, and lovemaking fun and suggestions in the Intimately Us app. Ramona, welcome to the Get Your Marriage On podcast. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you. I love that. Get your marriage on.
Let's go get
It's
your
just
marriage
fun.
on.
Yeah.
It's
Looking forward to a fun time with you, Dan.
Great. So tell me, how did you get started with your work that you do now? What was your big epiphany?
Well, I got started with my work 45 years ago when I married Dale Zabriskie.
That's great.
Because marriage is a work, right?
Yes. Uh-huh.
I like to call it an artistic work
Mm-hmm.
that takes, it's like creating a masterpiece, and
Mm-hmm.
you have to develop the skills to become that master artisan, your own Michelangelo of your own marriage.
I gotcha.
So that's something I've been working on for 45 years. But as far as my work as in sharing what I've learned with others, that really started growing in me about 15 years ago or so. I had many compelling experiences that got me to the point of actually writing a book. And that led into a number of educational programs and outreaches for women, which the readers of the book basically demanded or requested. But we had just come home from living in London, actually, and we were back home to where we live in Washington State in the Pacific Northwest. And so it was a beautiful time of year, spring, and my lovely friend who is much younger than I was, but we spent lots and lots of time together, and I was kind of mentoring her as she was raising her young family. And so we were planting flowers in my flower bed out front. It felt so good to be back home and doing that kind of thing. I didn't get to do much of that kind of thing in London. I was really enjoying the day and the conversation, which turned towards her friends that were more her contemporaries in their late 20s, early 30s, who so many of were already in second marriages.
Oh, wow.
She started rattling them off, telling me each of their names. So we're up to like 5 or 6, these friends. And I'm like, what? What? What the heck are you talking about? This was really disturbing to me that these young women were already in second marriages. And I said, what do you attribute it to? What is that? And she said, I don't know. They didn't see the red flags. They were too young. I don't know. And Dan, in that moment, with my hands gloved and dirtied and the sun in my eyes, I don't know. I felt like actually a lightning bolt came out of the sky and just, buzzed my head. And I felt like you will find out why.
Wow.
You, this is your job. Find out why these young women are in second marriages, and then find out what you can do to prevent it, basically.
So what did you find
It was
out?
your job. This was your job. And that day, the whole world basically changed for me. I had no idea what was ahead for me. I now work with women in over 70 countries on their personal growth and their relationships, but most particularly their marriages. And yeah, I'd started a whole effort, over the next 2-3 years where I was just doing intense research, including going through my own journals. I'm a big journal keeper. So reliving my own marriage. And that was a huge help, actually, in writing the book, which is called Why for Life, The Power to Succeed in Marriage. And it is a woman's inspirational guide to a grand lifelong marriage. So what I felt very compelled to do then is to help women. And I did start out thinking I was going to work with young women, and I do. But we also work with women from every generation. We work with women who've been married for 50 years and women who've never been married. And obviously women who've been multiple times married or who are unmarried or whatever. It just really surprised me that my message and what I'd learned resonated so big. We were almost divorced.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
Okay.
This is why that day really struck me,
Mm-hmm.
because I could have been one of those young women who was in a second marriage in her 20s.
Gotcha. Earlier in your life at that time.
Yes. We were married for 2 years and we filed for divorce and went through the whole works. We were 4 days away from divorce court. And the whole story's in the book in detail. When he reached out to me and said, do you want to try again? So, and at that moment, no one supported me in it. No one. Absolutely not. Another soul on earth who knew and loved Ramona Messagey, that was my maiden name, supported me in returning to being Ramona Zabriskie. Not my parents, not my, aunts and uncles, nobody. They all thought I was crazy and that he was a jerk. He was a loser. He was immature, and it was good. I had gone out of their marriage. It was a big mistake from the beginning. They all knew it. I've been married 45 years now. This man. And he is a redwood of a tree kind of man, as opposed to the little twig that I married. But at the time, everyone could only see the twig, and so could I. And that's why we filed a divorce. And so now let me tell you, you ask, what have I learned? That's what we'll talk about today. But it's important for me to stress the source of that learning. Yes, I dove into 150 marriage books, the ones that are really, really, truly accredited and admired, and universally accepted as being truly the most helpful books out there. So yes, I did all of that and another 100, academic studies and to relationships and marriage and all of that. I did all that. And I told you I went through my own journals. But what I teach women now is what I learned from my own experience, my own study, of course, but from other women, other successful wives and women. I believe in that. I believe in mentorship being the best, most optimal way to truly learn and internalize the deep growth and changes that are needed in our heart and spirit to really succeed in relationship. I think mentorship is key. So I
Yes.
do call myself a mentor. I am the mentor to hundreds and hundreds of women. That's what they call me, more than a teacher or whatever. I teach as I mentor. In fact, so I do personal coaching and, mentoring. I don't even call it coaching. I do private mentoring with women outside of my program, educational programs. And someone asked me the other day, well, why didn't you get a counseling degree and be a counselor? And I said, listen, I could have been a counselor 30 years ago or whatever, but I could only be a mentor now because mentors have lived it.
Yes. That's a big difference.
Big
Yes.
difference.
Uh,
And so it's other women and their mentorship that has taught me and really made me and my marriage what it is today. So that's what I was doing. Pursue that day when we were planting flowers. And that's what I knew in that moment that you asked me, what was your light bulb moment? That was one of the compelling experiences that led me to do what I do today and how I do it, which is mentoring.
That's amazing. So, what were some of the big epiphanies as you dug through your journals, read through the marriage research, books, and mentoring other couples and women? What is it? What are like some of the top things that are coming up for you?
um, I'm going to encourage your listeners to get my free ebook. Easily done. You go to wifesavers.org. You get a free ebook because it's called 5 Lies We Tell Bride
Okay.
and 5 Truths That Save Lives.
All right.
Right. So there's a
Uh-huh.
lot of those. But I boiled
Distilled them. Uh-huh.
down to, at least for the purposes of that ebook. I think we'll get into all that as we keep talking. But one of the big ones that really resonates with women today is that men have a completely different way of approaching family life than women do, and different way of dreaming than women do. And so we think we're supposed to be the same.
Right. Or united. United meaning the same. Right.
Yeah. Or close, meaning the same.
Uh-huh. Yes. Mhm.
And so that's one of the things that really makes all the difference for Lifesaver students is when that really, really sinks in. For instance, men have fears, frankly, that we as women, we're completely unaware of. And when we're that unaware, what happens is we actually stir up inadvertently without meaning to. We're actually reaching out for connection. But the way we do it or the way we go about it ends up exciting his fears.
Gotcha.
And that
Such
works
as
against us because that pushes him away from us instead of drawing him closer to us, which was our original intent, right? Was just, I call it killing him softly.
Okay.
When we hurt hurt the men that we're trying to love. So, for instance, some of the things that we do might be showing disappointment in his job or the income he provides, or crying about the things we can't afford or
Uh-huh.
whatever,
Uh-huh.
or teasing him about his body, or communicating contempt for his masculine nature. I'm looking at a long list here, accusing him of not being loving or attentive or supportive enough, laughing at him about
Mhm.
anything, questioning his decisions in front of others, sending him the message that his fathering is inadequate, making disparaging comments about him, so on and so forth, speaking disrespectfully of him or to him in front of the children, complaining of his leadership or partnership in the home, blah, 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 blah.
Okay. Yeah.
That comes from, we have 5 personas or aspects of they're common to wives that we call the crazy ladies. And we call them the crazy ladies because it's crazy what we're doing. We're actually pushing him away. It's
Uh-huh.
making a completely different impact. We're blowing up our dreams, basically, of that
Mhm.
unified partnership. So the behaviors I just read are under crazy lady number 1, which is a shamely. And we named her shamely because that is what she does.
Gotcha.
She acts on her fear of disappointment, which triggers her husband's fear of not measuring up. That's the number 1 fear for men, is a fear of failure.
Mhm. And she's probably good intentioned, right? She's thinking, if I point these things out, then
Yeah.
he'll know to work on these things. So I'm improving the marriage, but
Yeah.
it's not
And there's
received
actually
that
a
way.
way to go about all that, but it isn't the way that women normally do.
Mhm.
So what she ends up saying is, you're disappointing, you're inadequate, you're ridiculous.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Mhm.
I see that
The
in the
other,
couples I coach too. For
okay.
yes. Uh-huh.
Crazy lady number 2 is called stupidia, because why? She makes them a little stupid,
Uh-huh.
right?
Uh-huh.
And she's acting, and there's a long list of behaviors. They're in the book, they're in the course. She acts on her fear of being exploited,
Okay.
which stirs up her husband's fear of becoming subservient and losing his independence, because
Give me
that's
like 2 or 3 examples of
really
that.
important. Teases him as a non-entity in the company of others, interrupts him before he has time to formulate his thoughts or express himself, makes fun of him in front of others, barrages him verbally.
Gotcha.
As a woman, I have 6 or 7 language centers in my brain. That's just brain science, where I can word process. So I can think verbally or in words, and then spit them out like a machine gun.
Uh-huh. Huh. You're you're very articulate. Okay.
I really hate to tell you this, Dan. Do you know how many language centers there are in your brain?
My guess is a half,
Yeah,
maybe a quarter.
you have 1.
Okay, good. That's better than I was thinking.
And your corpus callosum is 25% smaller than mine.
What does a corpus
Corpus
callosum do?
callosum. It's the bundle of nerves that connects the 2 hemispheres of the brain.
Oh,
And
from right to left?
to
Uh-huh.
think and then speak, you got to get the little, those little, you know,
Mhm. Dendrites connected.
has
Yes.
to
Uh-huh.
go through the corpus callosum, right?
Mhm.
You have 25% less chance of doing that than I do.
Gotcha.
I can beat you in a talk, and virtually any woman could, And your brain is taken up with a whole bunch of other really important things that are greatly advantageous to me, and so on and so forth. So it isn't that your brain is lesser, it's just different. So the point is, barraging him verbally like a machine gun, women, we do that.
You have because you have the advantage. It's an easy way to kinda take control or whatever.
Yeah.
Take up more room in the relationship for that matter.
Take up more room in the relationship. Oh, I love the way you put that. That's so good. So that's crazy lady stupidia. And there's a whole bunch more. And when women learn about the crazy ladies, they love them and they hate them, of course.
Because they can identify with them.
They see that they're all over the map. I'm a little ashamed. I'm a little stupidia. The next one is irrelevant.
Okay.
And what she does is she acts on her fear of losing her identity or, again, of exploitation, which ignites her husband's fear of uselessness.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Guys hate feeling useless. It is a tragedy to feel like they have no purpose or they're of no use in a situation or a home. You ever seen the movie Death of a Salesman or the play Death of a Salesman? That's what it's all
I
about.
haven't, but I've heard of it.
It's just a tragedy. So what she ends up communicating is you are boring, you are useless, you are repulsive. That's irrelevant. Crazy lady. Irrelevant. Maybe she's apathetic about his interests or his accomplishments, or she chooses her own pursuits over his, or she spends more time and energy on others than on him, or she makes important family or personal decisions without involving him, or carelessly or purposely leaves him out of the children's lives, or discounts his attempts to please her and seldom shows gratitude. They're all just common things. Again, there's a long list.
That's good.
So you can see that's only 3 of the 5.
Uh-huh.
Or no, didn't get to 4. No, that's 3 of the 5.
Who's 4 and 5?
Well, you're just dying to know. You're not gonna leave anybody a reason to buy the book. No, I'm kidding. This is only one chapter. Crazy lady number 4 is betrayal.
Okay.
So she makes him feel betrayed. How does she do it and why? Well, she's acting on her fear of inadequacy, which all of us as women have.
This seems to be a common theme, running theme. Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Her fear of inadequacy or getting hurt, right? And that stirs up her husband's fear of neglect or loneliness. So we got a crazy thing going here, crazy cycle. And what she ends up, even though she's really trying to do the right thing in her mind, she ends up communicating is you are not as good as, you're not as important as, you're not as fascinating as. Right. So maybe she neglects his needs in order to take care of other people's needs. Has she ever made a big meal for the neighbors and then you get hot dogs? You don't.
Uh-huh.
Right?
You get the leftovers.
Or she compares, you get the leftovers. She compares him to other men.
Mm-hmm.
Or speaks glowingly of other men.
Mm-hmm.
Flirts, obviously, maybe with other men at social occasions, talks or blogs, tweets, Facebooks, whatever, to others about her marriage in a sarcastic way, or shares intimate aspects of her married life, doesn't bother to make herself attractive to him, yet obsesses over whether other men find her attractive, so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
She finds other projects more worthy or pressing or interesting than her marriage.
Mm-hmm.
That's betrayal. And now you want to know number 5?
Yep.
Okay, she's my nemesis. This is the one I always have to battle. And that's crazy lady, depressor.
Okay.
She depresses him. She acts on her fear of abandonment or loss or disappointment, which spans her husband's fear of being overwhelmed by emotional demands. Your husband, if our female listeners, is afraid of being overwhelmed emotionally by you. His brain does not process emotion in the same way yours does. And it's like a tidal wave coming on when you are in your most passionate state. And, here it comes.
Uh-huh.
The intensely negative, usually, kind of emotion is just he cannot process it as fast and in the volume, if you will,
right.
as it comes on, if you think of a tsunami kind of thing. And there's a reason for that. Mother Nature, it's brilliant that there's a reason that he doesn't process emotion as swiftly as you do.
He's in the heat of a battle. You gotta, right?
He has a level head. I tell women,
yes.
if there was if the world was falling apart
Yeah.
outside your front door.
Or the house is on
right?
fire, whatever,
The
right?
house is on fire. What would you be doing? Well, you'd hope that you'd be thinking,
Mhm.
okay, here's what we need to do.
Right.
But you'd probably be crying and screaming a little and on your phone, texting or tweeting with your friends to find out what they're doing for the end of the world. Your husband's like independent, logical. In that moment, Mother Nature set him up to handle it.
Mhm.
But that doesn't play out very well when there's just some incident, ordinary everyday incident that causes you a real negative, intense emotion, and it comes on to
Mhm.
him. And he's like, I need 7 times longer than you do to process.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Like, no, you don't understand me. You're not trying. You're not, you're so unfeeling. You're so insensitive. And he's like,
But if this could
So-
go the other direction too, like you could have an incident, like I'm thinking of one in my own marriage where
good.
we were going through a pretty difficult trial, and it was very easy for me to look at my wife in a condescending way and say, "Come on, get over it. Let's get through it. Let's pick things
Yes.
up. Let's move forward.
Yes.
This is the next
Yes.
step." Instead of
Yes.
recognizing that this is something
Yes.
really difficult for her,
Yes.
and to be able to sit with that and appreciate that for what that is.
My book was written for women, right? And my work is with women exclusively. But in the past couple of years, I've been private mentoring, not just women, but couples,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
And all these years, women have been saying, when are you going to do something for husbands? Because that's what you just pointed out from his, he needs to understand her.
Mhm.
And I've just been afraid that women were going to take my book for husbands and beat their husbands up.
Oh yeah, weaponize it. Okay. Uh-huh.
Yeah. And but I'm finally to the place where I'm comfortable with it. So I am working on it, and I hope to have it published this year, maybe next, but hopefully this
Would it be
year.
called Husband Savers?
It's gonna be the husband whisperer. That's what
Okay.
some people call me.
Nice.
The book, this book is Wife for Life. So
Husband
it'll
for
be
life. Uh-huh.
Husband for Life. It's Wife for Life, the power to succeed in marriage, but it'll be Husband for Life, the challenge to succeed in marriage.
Now, why is that important wording? Why challenge when talking to men?
I don't expect a lot of men to browse the bookstore shelves and choose a book on marriage. So I wanted to make it clear that this was going to be an exciting read, and that of all the challenges in their lives, which they have so many of,
Mhm.
and not, true of all guys all the time, but generally speaking, men enjoy a challenge.
We want a challenge. We want a
yeah.
quest. We want
Yes.
something to shoot for.
And so
hunt.
all the challenges in their life, what I hope they come away with in the end is that the greatest accomplishment of their lives would be to develop and refine a remarkable partnership with a woman.
Mhm.
That is the greatest challenge of a lifetime, but it's not impossible. Not something if they can climb a mountain, or they can, and I'm going to use I am using a lot of examples of real marriages, of guys that do these crazy, amazing things,
Uh-huh.
in addition to having a really solid, grand, what I call grand, that's very unique to Wife Savers, marriage or partnership. So that's why I use challenge.
Great. If you're a wife and you're in a situation where you feel like your husband just isn't listening to you, I get the 5 crazy ladies, and you can probably identify with 1, 2, 3, 4, or maybe all 5 of them. And
At one time or another,
right? At one time or
in any
another.
given day.
What's one piece of advice you can give our listeners today? Maybe a different approach, a different shift to see better results in your relationship.
Communicating how to get him to listen to you.
Yeah, get it to listen.
Well, it's there's different kinds of listening. Do you,
Like paying
you
attention.
mean you want him to tune in and really hear what you're saying? So there's different things we need to say to our husbands, different things we need to communicate. Sometimes it's that big emotional dump,
Mm-hmm.
right? Other times it's more revelatory. We need to reveal our hearts to him, just kind of when it isn't a bleh, it's more like a. And then there are other practical things that every day, I need you to do this, take
Mhm.
care of that. The kids need this, lots and lots of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we learned a whole skill set in the Wife Savers course, a number of skill sets, actually. And we call them, on the big umbrella that covers all of them, is called teaching a night to knit, or
Teach a night to knit. All right.
or the language of respect.
Okay.
Okay.
What's one example of that?
If you're talking about the ordinary, everyday, please take out the garbage,
Okay, great. Uh-huh.
You think that should be enough, but
What's the wrong way to do it, first of all?
what is this garbage still sitting here for? I can't, would something take care of this garbage? Honey, why didn't you do this yesterday?
Aren't you good enough?
That's the wrong way.
Yeah. The neighbors don't have this problem. How come we have this problem?
Yes. Yes.
Uh-huh.
Exactly. No, but the right way would be the language of respect, which is you set forth a very clear mission. The emotion is out of it.
Okay.
Much of what we do in Wife Savers is based or springs from the really deep down understanding that our husbands, the men in our lives, do everything they do to impress and please us. Now, most of my students, and I'm sure your listeners right now go, excuse me, they don't believe it. They do not believe it. And it takes a lot of education and eye-opening and a completely different, just a paradigm shift for
Maybe that's
women.
just the man in me, but I thought that was obvious. I thought everyone knew that.
Thank you. Exactly. No, it's not. It's not obvious to women. They don't believe it. They do not believe it. So it takes quite a bit of education, as I say, a real paradigm shift. And when they really start internalizing it, now they're in a position to use all these skill sets under communication. So if I assume that you really do deep down want to impress and please me, then I'm going to begin my request for whatever it is. And I don't like taking out the garbage. It's too simple and too ordinary, but maybe,
It works for our purposes for today.
it works for gazillion things, everything. In fact, it works where I need to talk. We need to talk. It works for that too. So if I believe that you really want to please me, I will say it would help me a lot if, or I would appreciate it if, or it would mean the world to me if, right? You approach it like that. And then you state the mission. What is it? Whatever it is. I would appreciate it if we could sit down and talk for a few minutes. He hears that and it's like, oh, she needs me. Here's an opening for me to do, to prove, whatever.
Right.
And then you state what the thing is that you need. And then you say, will you do that? And that's where we goof up all the time. There's a whole bunch of ways to goof up. You can make it too general, like it would be so helpful to me if we spent more time together. That is just so vague. It's not going to work. So it would help me a lot if we could have a two hours every Friday night together. Will you do that? That's where we leave off. We don't do that last part. So you have to solicit a commitment. So we call it STAC, SAC, solicit a commitment. So will you do that or would you do that? We never say, can you do that or could you do that?
Gotcha. Because
can you marry me? Well, I can. Could you marry me? Well, maybe. And a will or would. Got it. Nails it.
I got it.
So you have to say will or would. And then they'll wait for the yes. If you don't get the yes,
Mhm.
and by the way, if it's really important to have it done by a certain time, you better say, it would mean a lot to me if you would take Johnny to the store for me before 5 o'clock.
Uh-huh.
All right. So
Will
you
you
just
do
have to
that?
be very willing to do that.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And he loves it. I've never had a guy come back and say, "What was this thing you taught my wife?" They love it because it's clear. They know exactly what they need to do. There's no hint dropping. There's no scolding. It's just clear.
Uh-huh.
And it's respectful.
Right.
And so if they don't say yes, we have a whole bunch of backup. We have backup skills to show you how to approach it.
Mhm. Mhm.
But I'm giving you just the basics. And then when they say yes and they do it, then there's one more step.
What's the one more step?
We call it the happy dance. It's not literally doing that. It's fun if you want it, but it's just saying thank you. It's just like, that made me happy. Thank you.
Uh-huh. It's like reinforcing the feedback loop. It's just, right?
Yeah. You celebrate what you want more of. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. And
Yeah.
if I'm summing up a lot of what you're teaching me today, it's when we act on our insecurities in a way that's condescending, that creates this negative feedback loop in our relationship.
Yeah.
And so the teaching night to knit approach, there's no condescension in it. You're coming from a place of calm. You're not like triggered out of your own insecurity in that moment. You're learning how to really like level and treat your spouse as a partner, as an equal. That's the magic, I think, of what that works.
That's the whole point of Wife Savers and everything I teach is to, over time, right, develop a genuine, equally reciprocal, romantic partnership.
And there's a
Partnership.
word you keep using over and over called a grand marriage. Let's end on that. Tell us what you mean by that.
I like to say, we'll take your marriage from troubled to good to great to grand. There's a step beyond grand. Beyond great is grand. So grand would be that ultimate partnership that is also romantic. And that gives it extra real power in the world, where you have two people who have worked their way through these a lot, right? Who have become true partners in the sense that his quest, which is his singular kind of focus, usually in a career, but his quest and her dazzles, she could have many different dreams as opposed to his singular kind of vision. A woman can have all kinds of dreams that start, stop, and she's doing many at the same time. It's like two dreams, the impossible dream for the guy. And over here, it's climb every mountain, board every stream, So they have taken his quest and her dream, her dazzles, we call them in Wife Savers, they have enabled, supported, facilitated these for each other throughout their lifetimes. And they come like this, and this is bringing to a unity. I talk a lot more about this in one of my YouTube videos called The Secret to a Successful Marriage, Wife Savers by Ramona on YouTube. But anyway, there's multi-steps involved, and you come closer and closer, and then you're on a sort of singular focus. In fact, the ultimate dream weaving, we call it, is when you share a dream and you're both working on it. We have lots and lots of contemporary and historical examples of that we learn from. But anyway, dream weaving is the secret to creating, in the end, a grand partnership, that grand relationship that affects, there's several characteristics involved, but the ultimate impact is that it is felt for generations. I call it a legacy love. So grandma and grandpa, so-and-so, great grandma and grandpa, so-and-so, great grandma and grandpa. They still talk about that relationship. And it stands as a beacon, an example, and a secure foundation for your children, their children, your posterity. So that's what I call grand marriage. And you don't really get there in my way of thinking, my book, until you're white haired, usually.
Makes sense. Oh, that's what I want for myself too. I
Mhm.
want that grand marriage. Ramona, this has been excellent. Thanks for everything you've been sharing. Now, where can people go to learn more about what you do and learn more about you?
Wifesavers.org. It's that simple. It's one word, wifesavers.org.
Great.
And
Easy.
we have a podcast, the Wife Savers podcast, like you do, that I do with my husband.
Oh,
And
great.
we take one question from the audience, and then we have Wife Savers by Ramona on YouTube. And I do tutorials there that are just, 10 minutes at max kind of thing. Of course, there's the book, Amazon, Amazon, Amazon. But our ultimate, our real flagship is the Wife Savers course and community, where it's a really loving, dynamic, truly authentic, truly women from all over the world community. And they support each other through the course as they're learning and growing. And it's amazing. We have lots of live interaction and events throughout
That's
every month of the year.
that's excellent. Well,
Yeah.
well, thank you very much.
No, thank you. Thank you for your work.
Mhm. My
So
pleasure.
important. So much to do for families, right?
Mhm.
We hope that you enjoyed this episode of Get Your Marriage On. And if you did, we would love it if you would take a few seconds to give us a rating on iTunes and to share the show with your friends. They'll thank you for life. Once you've done that, you can head over to getyourmarriageon.com for more resources about today's topic and to download our amazing marriage apps. Now go get your marriage on.